Hello, hello, this is Irene. This is Irene with SaugaTalks today. Hello, how's everyone doing? Because I am doing exceptionally well. I speak weekly with fascinating people in tech here at SaugaTalks. And today I feel privileged. I really feel very, very lucky. Because our guest of the hour is Terence Mills. Terence is CEO at AI.io. Terence, is that how you say it quickly? Welcome to SaugaTalks.
It is, and thank you. I'm so happy to be chatting with you.
Fantastic, because we here together to discuss, AI, but not AI as artificial intelligence technology, because I do talk a lot with other guests about how technology now augmenting humans, how hopefully we're gonna get rid of mundane work someday and machine can do it for us. What I wanted to talk to you about, Terence, because you've built businesses. You've been, 6 times CEO in the past?
That's correct, yes.
It will be fantastic to hear from you how AI can help build businesses, which is revenue growing activity, not just cutting costs, not improving humans. So where do we begin?
Well, we can begin with the business problems that exist whenever you're building a business, and the opportunity to understand and identify those problems is, quite frankly, one of the hardest things that CEOs, CFOs, COOs, CIOs can do. And if that C-suite isn't there to do it to begin with, by large part, so when you're starting your business, that's problematic too. So how we get to a point where the C-suite can buy into how we can build a business utilizing technology to do what? To shave expenses, to derive insights that make sense, where we can get new sources of income, or in a lot of cases, income at all. It's all very interesting about how that technology in AI can actually do that. But implementing it is one thing. Adopting it to make it work inside of the business is another thing. And if you happen to be in a business, for instance, that's in a regulated industry, you're going to have some more challenges that you have to overcome as you try to implement some of this technology. And the apprehensiveness to adopt the technology has a lot to do with the quality of data that you receive. You have to train your AI. You have to figure out what business problem you're solving. And through the training and test sampling and all the big data attributes that go along with real data requirements, has a lot to do with your outcome. And because of this, sometimes data is in shortage. Sometimes the data is there, but we don't know how to use it. Sometimes the data isn't clean and needs to be cleaned, and these are different people that need to do these things. So as a result, the skill set is also very material to the overall adoption of this technology also. So it's all kind of this thing that goes all together, but you have to take pieces at a time. And there are many different ways to do that. But it's interesting how you have to put in the building blocks to have it all work together.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot to think about, right? And from leadership perspective, let's start with initiatives, top to bottom, right? If I inspired leader and I understand that I need to move my company forward, rebuild it sometimes, right? So where this vision starts, and then we're gonna get to adoption and how we get our employees, and people on board with these new ideas, because we all live through, leadership who just have shiny new toy in their hands and they think it's gonna solve all the world problems, and guess what? This is a good setting for a failure. So yes, where do you start the right way? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And I wish everyone asked that question, quite frankly. It starts with the business problem. I'll keep coming back to that because it never gets old. It's funny what happened in this, what I'll call this mania of AI that started really 4 years ago. As we know, AI has been around for a very long time, but it started about 4 years ago, where this mania came And you had so many developers that jumped on the bandwagon and developed their own solutions, then looking for a problem. Well, that kind of has never worked. And so I don't know why it happened here with AI in particular. But starting with the business problem is key and fundamental. If you can understand your business problem, and then you can understand the actual things that are causing it, then and only there do you have your starting point. From there, you can actually, if you can, conceptualize a solution based on envisioning. And maybe that has a lot to do with a deep dive into what some of these problems, the roots of these problems are, and the problems that they themselves, meaning the problem itself, is causing. And if you can do that and do it really well, then sure, if you have a right mind about how you want to solve something, you can envision it. The conceptualization part, that's a little bit more challenging. But that is the starting point, and it's where everyone needs to start.
That sounds that you sending us to do the homework first, okay? That sounds like a very practical, pragmatic advice, which I love because, frankly, right, there's no magic. AI is not robot that's going to improve our lives just automatically, right? This is our human work, commonplace first, and that's a good news, I think. That's a good news.
I agree, because it helps the process. This is a process just like any other process. And it helps the stakeholders start to really understand what they need to be doing. And if they can first start with the business problem, maybe they didn't even know these problems existed in the first place. But when they do the process, they start to understand that that's there. And I don't know, Irene, now I'm sending you to do the homework or anyone else to do the homework. I think that there are people that can partner together with you to do the homework, of course. It doesn't mean that they can conceptualize the solution. It doesn't mean that they can build the solution, even if they can conceptualize it. But commonly you'll find that people really need help. And that's okay. We should summon that help, and we should go out and we should find a way to envision these problems, conceptualize the solutions, and then move forward from there. And that's what we do on a daily basis.
Wonderful. I do hope it sends very optimistic message. The reason I'm saying us, all of us combined, because those who feel insecure now, what if robot takes everything from me and I have nothing to do anymore at my job? You know, looks like, right, these jobs will be shifted to still very human analysis, right, with empathy. Let's not forget that business analysis, right, those processes, customers now demand a little more than just streamlined operations, don't you think? From customer experience,
There's no doubt. And the first thing when the mania of AI hit, everyone thought, well, if this is now going to take the place of my job, then why am I going to help it along? Why am I going to buy into this process?
Exactly.
And so the human beings that are most affected by what happens here need to be part of the process. Because you know what has happened is that none of it has proven to be true 3 years later or 4 years later. It is creating jobs. And we've been through this many, many times. We were through it when Amazon came along and everyone said, I'm no longer going to have a job. But what ended up happening to people that tended cash registers in big box stores? They went to work for Amazon. They went to work for Walmart. They got trained in a higher level of skill set, and upskilling is something that's so important. And not only that, they got an opportunity to make more money, and they participated in the process. AI is no different, by the way. And we find that we are adding jobs. Yeah, in some cases, we reduce workforce, but those cases we end up adding new workforce, or we end up retraining workforce to do something new, a higher value task. So we have to look at, the mania from what the reality is 4 years later.
Absolutely, because in my experience, it depends who you talk to. If you talk to technologists, of course they're running under with the next shiny toy. They want to implement whatever is hot and cool and buzzy right now, of course. But hey, there gotta be this collective wisdom, right, in business, deciding, yes, we're giving it a try, we're investing in this initiative, and yes, we're getting people affected by it on board with us. Right? That's, I think, the responsible approach.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it all starts with the top, by the way. We talked about this a couple minutes ago, but it starts with the C-suite. And then there are stakeholders that happen to be in these companies, whether you're a big company or you're a small company. There are people that drive the business. And guess what? The AI solution that you implement, ultimately, it's going to touch just about everyone in the company in some way, shape, or form. So the stakeholders need to get on board with this because they need to understand, hey, look, this isn't about replacing jobs, but this is more about what can we do to improve the business? And everyone's got to play that role.
Absolutely. And this gives us good segue into talent. Okay, we will need more people, not less people, but those people have to be trained certain way. You touched on it. So where do you see the future of work in that sense?
This is a big deal. 4 years later, everyone's coming to the realization that adoption has to do a lot with the solutions. And there are people really confident with these solutions to get them out of the lab and to put them in production. The issue is the confidence level is really, really low. And as a result of that, when looking at it and inspecting it, often we find that the solution is not as powerful as it needs to be. And that comes from the lack of talent. And those talent resources are our biggest enemy at the moment. And it is a nationwide problem. And in some cases, it's beyond our borders. But we do find that in other parts of the world, that there is this talent that exists, that sees numbers differently, that when looks at 1 through 10, they see a whole myriad of possibilities. And that has a lot to do with data. So, and the visualization of data, yes, but the science of data more, and the execution of that science of data around a solution that solves a business problem, that's the talent that we seek. And unless we can solve that problem, I fear that the adoption rate of solutions that someone takes a product off the shelf, some type of machine learning product, and tries to tweak it and change it to make it fit, then it never really works the way that we want it to. You have to have the talent to build this stuff from the ground up, and that is not easy. And we have to change this talent gap problem in the US. And we all can, again, inclusive, right? We can all take any measures that we possibly can to do it. We have to change our hiring practices. We have to start to understand that other people do have skills. We may need to take a look at varying skills. So you get lower level people with one set of skills, and then you start building steps on top of that of more experience in order to get the ultimate experience that you're looking for. So unfortunately, maybe it's not one person, but we start to take a look at how we can pay these people is also very important too. Compensation is a big piece of it, but not as important as changing our hiring practices and where we go to go get the talent that we're looking for to build these solutions. Ultimately, though, we have to teach it. And that's part of our role also. If we stand to compete at a higher level here in this technology, we're going to have to teach it.
Where do we start teaching it? Is it kindergarten, elementary school? What do we do? What's the triage? Because it used to be for decades, I am not good at math. I'm going to take some other path in life, right? So where are these things that we're not forcing people to do things they don't want, right? But at the same time, making it so attractive that those who are willing to try, they will be successful and they will be rewarded in the end.
Look, there's no doubt. And we often think of diversity when talking about skill sets, and what diversity that we're willing to accept often is the discussion. However, it's not about that. It's not about what we're willing to accept. It's where we're willing to look outside of where we usually look to hire the people that are wanting, that are willing, that are excited, that want to wake up in the morning and say, this is what I want to go do. They do exist. These people are there. It doesn't mean that they don't have to be taught, but we can appoint as many chief learning officers in major corporations as we want, but they're not doing the teaching. They're not teaching big data skills. They're not teaching machine learning skills. They're not teaching cybersecurity skills. By the way, just take those three alone and they make up the top 4 of the skill sets gap that we have. So we are going to, again, change hiring practices. We're going to have to be willing to look beyond our borders. And maybe we're willing to look a little bit differently. Maybe it's not always about the education level. And maybe we have to start looking at pools of people that don't have a college education. We have to start looking at groups of people that we wouldn't normally think were tech savvy. But why are we painting people with this brush anyway? We shouldn't. We should be willing to say, you know what? We are in such shortage of the skills that we want that we really can't pass anybody over, nor should we. We should take a hard look at just about everyone to make sure that we're getting the skills that we're looking for. But, you make an interesting point about learning. The real failure, if you look at the source of this, is that industry is not advising universities and academia on the skills that they really need to have. Mm-hmm. And academia is a 2-year-long curriculum, either way you cut it. So it's not like you can go out and change the curriculum immediately either. So there are all sorts of challenges, but we need to come together on these challenges and start teaching this stuff. And we need to communicate better. And that's going to come from people saying, hey, I built this solution around this business problem, and this is how I did it. But that's not so easy, is it? That in of itself is pretty hard.
It's not easy. And to be on the optimistic side, if any country can do it, it's this country. And the reason for that, I was this young graduate when I arrived in 1992, late December, okay, with college degree, but no profession, no skills on the job market, all right?
Sure.
Point is that even back in the 90s, all right, they gave me the job because I am not that, that bad to adjusting, okay, and seeing where the opportunity is in the marketplace. So from my physics degrees, I was able to pick up some SQL, Oracle development skills quickly without even going to school here, okay? But I have to applaud and thank so much Oxford Health Plans, the HMO company back in Connecticut those days, okay? They hired me without American experience, okay? They hired me without even proper English, frankly, because I was in the country for a couple of years raising my son. So if anything, okay, I am the perfect example that if individual wants or interested in taking a part in developing economy, okay, in part of the industry that's actually thriving at the time, relational databases.
Sure.
Okay, so thanks to those who advised me to get into the field. So enough about me, but the example is that in this country, they did hire me, okay, and I did well. I did really well. I loved what I was doing. I was providing good income for my family, and now 20 plus years later, Okay, I'm happy to contribute and really not show the way, but kind of saying it's okay. It can happen to you if you kind of move, thinking proactively a little bit. So what's your experience, Terence? Any other exciting, examples of those transformations?
Hey, that is what we're talking about. The ability to go outside of what might have been deemed as a normal hiring practice, to go see something that someone saw in you that we can see in other people also. It exists. But we're going to have to change the way we view these things. By and large, it's something that is a challenge. We're up for the challenge, and there are the people that are willing to do exactly the same thing that someone did with you at Oxford. This is what's important. But we've kind of gotten into this mode where we're looking for a particular type of individual. But that's also a lot of where diversity comes in also, and our encouragement to encourage others to get involved in STEM jobs. It seems that we have one type of individual sometimes that we think about who should be in STEM, when it shouldn't be that way. When we have all sorts of individuals through diversity that want to be included, but maybe there's a reason why they feel like they shouldn't be included, right? So we have to get through all of that in order to get to the people that have the skills, that can be taught the skills, that have the ability to excel like you did. And you made a difference, didn't you? You made a difference when you were in your job at Oxford. And there's a lot of other people that want to make the same difference and feel like that they absolutely can. I see coming out of the universities now, out of some of the cyber programs, some incredible skills. And sure, you have Apple and Google and Amazon. They're going to try and swipe up all the good people really quick, right? So we have our own challenges for that also. But maybe the options are, it's not just the universities, like I said. There are different places where we can go to find really, really skilled people that we can teach these STEM jobs to. And that's what I'm excited about, because that's exactly what we've started doing, here. And it's working out pretty good.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's step out of this tech bubble, kind of, right? To be successful, we have to get business people along, what you mentioned, right? Analyzing business problem first, right?
Yes.
So with that, some knowledge has to propagate, right, through that border between business and tech divide, don't you think?
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about it. You have to be able to experience a business problem in order to understand that it's a problem to begin with, right? And so sometimes tech people are so ingrained in the technology that they're not as ingrained in understanding that I can do that deep dive into business and I can start to figure out what the problem is. And then I can even go one step further and I can envision a solution, and then I can conceptualize it. Maybe I can't build it, but at least I can envision and conceptualize it. And then even if I can build it, or I can get the help and the resources to build it, I'm doing really well, aren't I, at that point? And I think that teaching these things is all about experience.
Okay.
But we need to give people chances to have these experiences to go do it. And you know what? Sometimes you just might be surprised.
Totally. There is this comic going everywhere, like Twitter, LinkedIn, where, personal interview and interviewer, right, asking, do you have any experience? Person says, no, I don't. Good. We hope you're going to get one with us. You hired.
Right. There you go. That's
I love
right.
it. Don't you?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to take a chance as a manager, but that's okay, isn't it? It's perfectly okay.
It requires completely different, manager mindset, don't you think?
Yes.
It requires a lot involvement from a manager, because I've seen all kinds of managers in my career. You can believe it, right? So this industrial era, kind of early 20th century management jobs, they also not here anymore because you're not putting people into repetitive tasks anymore, right? Into repetitive jobs. You have to be a little more intelligent with empathy and with human curiosity. Who is going to be good at what job?
Hey, look, we can all sit here and say that we've all worked at one time or another for a host of different managers. Some good, some bad. Unfortunately, there's more bad than good. And there's experiences that we pick up along the way that sometimes we pick up some bad habits along the way too. And I always tell my managers, we're never done becoming a good manager. It goes on. It's an ongoing process. And I've run some big companies before. And I've learned that that's the case, that we're never done. And we always encounter a new challenge and a new problem. And now it's a skill set problem. And how are we going to overcome that? And I like your suggestion. I like your example of using yourself as well, because you can look inside of the situation and say, this is what happened to me. And imagine that it would happen to somebody else. But managers have to be able to see that and see that opportunity. When I'm hiring for a job today, whether it's a tech related job or maybe it's an administrative job, I'm always looking at it in the same exact way. Mm-hmm. Is this person a giver? Are they a taker? Or are they a matcher? Adam Grant wrote a very good book called Give and Take. And there's so much truth to it that it's almost kind of eerie. That the psychology behind human beings is that they can either give a lot in a professional environment and they're seen as people that might be weak. And then there's the matchers that say, hey, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. And then there are the takers that are perceived to be the people that just are completely selfish and take everything all the time and never give anything back. So do they get ahead faster than the givers who then turn around?
Run, right? Maybe on some very short period. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what we find and what he found, which is so true that when I say we find it in our job hiring as well, that people that are givers, they may be perceived sometimes as being weak, but they're really not. And they give and based on their giving, they have an opportunity to make other people around them successful. And that's very interesting.
That's a precious quality, right? To have on your team, if someone with that personality, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when other people are successful around that person, what happens? The company can be successful. And this is so true in a smaller company as well. Bigger companies, absolutely. Smaller companies, everything is magnified. And here we go with this assessment of give and take. I'll sit in an interview and I'll start identifying this person as a giver, a matcher, or a taker. And how can that benefit us in this particular position? And you often find that you come out on the side of giver quite a bit.
I'm loving how we took turn from AI, from technology and kind of hard skills to very soft skills, which every business should have the abundance of, both sides. So let me bring millennials here, okay? Those who did not have bad managers, good managers, they're starting out or they're like kind of quite successful in what they are. The attitude changed, completely changed. So if the job is not for me, if the company is not fulfilling my needs, I am not gonna study anything. I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna learn anything. So how do you see this working now? Because they are the future. So where is these talented managers and companies who really thriving because their people feel fulfilled?
Look, the millennials that came into the gig economy and and how that has been affected also by COVID, which we won't go into now because that's a whole different discussion. But they can become good managers. They're going to have to go through the paces in order to get there, quite frankly, also. This is not something that you can just all of a sudden wake up one day and say, hey, I'm a great manager today, and I can motivate people and I can get people excited about coming to work today and doing something new and innovative and helping others. These are things that I think are really learned over time. And with that, I think that we shouldn't paint millennials with a particular brush either. Like you noted, a lot of them are very successful in what they do, and that's okay also. This is about adopting an opportunity for them to have mentors, just like I had a mentor.
To wrap this up, we know new generations will work differently, okay? We were different from generations previous to us, so it's not a disaster. This is life, right? In that sense, I'm seeing that companies have to adapt to keep that talent, right? You have to change your ways, don't you think? And what are the best ways? We started again with AI, we started with emerging technologies. So where do we blend this again? Hard technology skills with good practices and just building businesses this way. Mm-hmm.
Well, when we look at it and try and put a bow around it and wrap this up and say, how do we do that? How do we bring in great skill sets? How do we bring in diversity? How do we bring in millennials? And how do we bring in the types of solutions that we ultimately want to build that we may need to teach the skills for? And that's the key. We have to understand that we may need to teach this stuff. And we may need to put programs in place that allow us to do just that allow us programs such as certificate learning that can be sponsored by universities, where they don't have to change their curriculums, by the way, but they can certainly sponsor those certificate programs where we can bring people in. Who's we? All of us. We're all contributing to this, to filling the talent gap, to this problem. And if we have resources, one of my views is that I can bring people that are part of my organization, that may be part of my data science organization in other parts of the world, and bring them here for periods to teach certificate programs. Now, that's only one idea, one solution. The other is, as we start to move forward here and put together economic development commissions as part of my role at the World Business Angels Investment Forum, which is a relationship with the G20, is the opportunity to not only put together learning programs, but get government behind this as well, and do it on a state-by-state basis. So we lay it down, for instance, in Florida, and we use that as a template. And we have not only academia involved, but we have government involved, and we have funders involved, and we're funding these types of programs so that we can teach people. And I think that that realization is the most important one to take away, because unless we have the view that we will teach it, I'm not too sure we're going to get it anywhere else. And I'm not too sure that people really want people learning on the job either.
That's a good wrap up for our conversation, Terence. Thank you so much. So if you need volunteers, if you need any help, I'm happy to be involved, because frankly, you're not just talking the talk, you're taking steps. And yes, we can help. There are lots of technologists out there. There are lots of good willing people who understand the problem, So hopefully with this talk, we'll do something together with that, and just spreading the knowledge that, hey, there is small steps. I hear boot camps. I hear technology boot camps, very successful. I know few young people who are after college right now refocusing and feeling very excited about these new opportunities.
I love to hear that. I love to hear it. And thank you for talking to me about it. It's a lot of fun.